John Cowan. John, how was your Anzac? Did you get roped into playing the trumpet or anything?
No, I did lay a wreath on
Okay.
behalf of some family members and things. So yeah, it was always very moving. I'm always a keen fan of Anzac Day. I don't know if you say fan.
Yeah.
It's always moving.
Yeah.
It's always lovely, and the parade I went to was very, very good. But I'd have to say the vicar that they had there,
Hmm.
I could just hear what the vicar was saying, and it was well worth listening to.
Yeah.
The thing is, I don't think many people could listen to it because the vicar didn't know how to use the microphone.
Okay.
They stayed a respectful distance away from it, as if the microphone was an affront to their manhood or something. So I was just reminded again that there's just some techniques and technology about communication that we all get called in to speak at different times.
Yeah.
Everybody's probably going to be thrust up to the front of an audience at some stage, whether it's talking at work or speaking at a funeral or at a 21st or something like that. So I just reckon there's a few simple things I'd like to share that can make it so much better.
Now, this is what you do for a living, and honestly, a couple of blokes who talk too much for a living, talking about how easy it is to talk in public, maybe a bit daunting for people who are saying, you know what, I would rather not do that. I'd rather swallow a live toad than do public
That's right.
speaking.
Yeah.
But actually, this is to encourage people who are perhaps less confident in that space, perhaps.
Can I just say the fear is normal. If you're afraid of public speaking, you're part of a big club. In fact, I've seen it and several times cited that more people are afraid of public speaking than they are of dying.
Wow.
So, they'd rather die literally than speak in public. So, if that's the way you feel, go for it anyway,
Yeah.
because if you don't do it, someone worse than you might take the microphone. And that's always in
Yeah.
fact, I'm sure you can think of instances when that has been the case.
Yeah.
And since you're going to have to do it anyway, you may as well learn how to do it well. And the basic part of it is just flapping your jaw and waving your tongue and vibrating your vocal cords.
Yeah.
Guess what? You've been doing that all your life, except for that, first couple of months of your life. So you've
Hmm.
got the basic qualifications you already have. You can
Yeah.
speak. Yeah. So just a few things. The first is prepare.
Hmm.
And I think one of the low points of anybody who's gone to church is seeing someone come up to a microphone and they say, I haven't really prepared what I've got to say, but I
Oh
just
dear.
believe God's going to give me something to say as I'm speaking. And you just know that God is going to
Wow.
get the blame for an appalling speech. And, people might think of that verse in Matthew 10:19, give no thought to what you shall say in that hour. And they use that as an excuse for not preparing what they're going to say. That applies to when you get arrested. That applies for when you're being persecuted. And if you're not in that situation, you know, that doesn't apply to you. The,
Perhaps
the
bad
onus
public
is on
speaking
you
could
to,
be a crime that they should arrest people and drag them away from the
yes,
microphone. But yeah,
that would be,
not
wouldn't that be a
judging.
good idea?
Yeah, maybe
Yeah.
maybe it would, and for some
If,
politicians as well, perhaps.
oh, yes. Yeah, maybe if you had people standing in front of the pulpit with manacles to haul you off if you don't do a good job, maybe that would increase the quality. I actually did hear of a church where while the minister was preaching, the deacons would walk around with great big sticks.
Mm.
And if they saw anyone in the congregation falling asleep, they'd go up and whack the minister.
And
So,
because I mean, there is a responsibility there, I suppose, and
yeah,
I suppose in this social media age, there's always somebody who's more entertaining and more engaging than us. And for people that don't have the experience,
yeah,
I suppose that nervousness of whether they're not going to measure up, whether they're going to get their words in a fuddle, or whether they're going to make a fool out of themselves publicly. I
yeah.
mean, that is a bit of an obstacle to get over, John.
Oh, and without a doubt, you are going to be judged.
Hmm.
Without a doubt, you will make mistakes and people will notice them.
Yeah.
So it does take a bit of courage. But the thing is, if it has to be done, let's do it well.
Yeah.
And so that first thing is prepare. And then, and by that I mean actually write it out longhand.
Mm-hmm.
You don't read it longhand, but actually write it out longhand.
Yeah.
Yeah, could I just say it's not usually a good idea to actually read your notes, because there's an old phrase, if it's read, it's dead.
Yeah.
And so, and you can tell when people are reading off a teleprompter and things. But
Mm-hmm.
so in general, write it out in longhand, then boil it down to headlines and just go from that.
Yeah.
But that's the thing that you do even before that is think of your audience before you even think of your content.
Okay.
What do they know about what you're going to be talking about? You know, if you're talking, doing a talk at work or something like that, you need to think, are these people fairly junior in the organization and don't really know about the things I'm going to be talking about? You know, there's some speakers that think it's clever to use a whole lot of language and technical talk that people won't understand because it makes them look very knowledgeable and intelligent. That's dumb.
Yeah.
That's you got to think about, what do people know? What's their vocabulary? What level of humor should I use? Think about the occasion.
Mm-hmm.
Is it appropriate to tell a joke at my grandmother's funeral? Often it is.
Yeah.
But you do think about these things beforehand, and just think, am I going to, and a big thing, and I think this is perhaps the most useful communication technique that I've been told, and that is address the wall.
Okay.
Think of the wall.
Yeah.
And by that, I mean, what is the obstacle between me and my audience that's going to make them hard to hear what I've got to say?
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't done many extreme sports. I haven't done bungee jumping. I haven't jumped out of airplanes. I'm a bit of a wuss. But I reckon that none of those can compare to the sheer terror of standing up in front of high school audiences talking to them about sex.
Wow.
And that's what I did do for a few years.
Yeah.
And, because you know what the audience is thinking. What does an old man like that know about sex?
Mm.
And so there's a huge wall between me and my audience,
Yeah.
an audience of age and culture, and they're looking at me, and I don't look like a movie star. And so whenever you're talking, thinking, what is the obstacle
Yeah.
between me and my audience? It may be your age. It may be you're talking to a bunch of old people and you're young. It may be that you're from a different church or religion. It may be that they know that you're there to speak to them to get money from them.
Mm.
I can remember speaking at a couple of things when I was working for a not-for-profit organization, and I'd be there to actually fundraise.
Yep.
And I'd say, just a warning, please erect your mental barriers and put the locks on your wallet, because I'm from a not-for-profit organization. I'm going to be after your money.
Yeah.
And so when you've identified the wall, you've somehow reduced that wall.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's good to actually come around their side of the wall
Mm-hmm.
and actually say, you're probably going to have a hard job understanding, believing what I'm going to say, because I come from this particular political point of view,
Yep.
and that's not where you're coming from. So identify the wall, and that, to a certain extent, gets it out of the way.
Yeah.
So identify the wall. Another thing is, when you're working out what you're going to say, and you've worked it out, cut it in half.
Okay.
I reckon you make something half as long, you make it twice as good.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever complains that you've been briefer than they were expecting. Ask how long they want you to speak, and if you can go less than that, that's great. There's no great talent in being able to speak for a long, long time.
Yeah.
The father of the bride disease, or whatever they call it, when they stand up and they start rambling on with anecdotes and things, and one after the other, making it up as they go along. So yes, stick to time or go less.
Yeah.
Nobody complains about you talking less.
Mm.
And just coming back to that point of, use the microphone. There'll be people there you might have a good voice, but people at the back probably still can't hear you. There'll be people like me that have hearing problems. They may want to record you. But most of all, using the microphone allows you to talk in a natural voice and to use a bit of vocal color to be able to drop your voice down and be quieter and then louder, rather than talking with a loud voice the whole time, which gets monotonous and boring if you can remember school.
Yeah.
And finally, be yourself, be humble. I think New Zealanders have an allergic reaction to people that puff themselves up and try and make themselves sound better than they really are.
Yep.
You can get away with being you because you are probably quite okay.
Hey,
so that's probably enough for that for the time being.
Very good advice. And it is one of those things where I suppose confidence comes with experience. But I love that final point. Don't get too confident. Don't get too cocky on that one, because that's probably the day you'll make the biggest fool out of yourself. John Cowan, appreciate what you bring to the show. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Hey, thanks very much for joining us in the Rhema studio. Thanks very much for watching the interview. It's kind of nice to have an audience, actually. And if you did like what you watched, then do give us a like, do give us the thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more interviews like that one, or perhaps even better, subscribe and those interviews will come straight to you. Don't forget to turn on your notifications, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.